All right. Good morning. Welcome you to our program again. All hope fulfilled, and I trust everyone is doing good. Everyone is strong and healthy. Um, in the next maybe 15 minutes, this is what we are going to look at. We are going to look at a component of Book of Revelation, and then the chapter is 20, but we are going to focus on a particular verse because I believe that it's all part of the entire chapter, and it's necessary. We looked at that because many people have appealed to this, and they have appealed to this verse, and they believe that probably we are living in the millennium. Others believe that the millennium has not yet come, but others believe that we are still living in the millennium. But what we are going to look at occurs before or immediately after the millennium. All right, so if we're able to conclude that what comes after the millennium is fulfilled, then that would mean that the millennium, the 1,000 years reign, is also fulfilled, and both of them belong to history. But if we are unable to demonstrate that this event has not yet occurred, then of course either the millennium has not started, or we are still living in the millennium. And so that is what we are going to look at, in the next 10, 15 minutes. So now, Revelation chapter number 20, that talks about, the time when Satan was bound and the 1,000 years reign. When you read, down the chapter, it talks about a time when Satan was released for a little while. Satan was released for a little while. That is in verse 4. But when you start at verse 1, it says that then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the keys to the bottomless pit, and a great chain, is in his hand. He laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of the old, who is devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. When you read Ephesians chapter 2, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, down to 18, Paul stated that their weapon of, or their defensive weapon or armory or armament was the gospel. And in that chapter, it says that they were in war against the principalities, the authorities, and those who were in the helm of affairs in the world, in the Jewish world at the time. These were, or we call it, darkness of this age, and we know that darkness is associated with the Jewish age. And he said that they were in war against the authorities of that Jewish age. So we are talking about Pharisees, the Sanhedrin, the Idumeans, and so on and so forth. The church was at war against them, or they have picked up fight against the church. Okay. However, their weapon of armory was the gospel. When you read down the verse, it was the gospel. See, the gospel was able to shatter them. It was able to shut them up. All the accusations that were brought against, the saints, the apostles, and so in the first century were all, or it did backfire, on them. They could not prove their points, neither were they able to convict them, the apostles, of all the charges that were leveled against them. Okay, so this is something that was going on in the first century. Remember in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1 to 5, Paul said that we did not fight with physical armory, or physical armament, but they fight with the gospel, which has power to destroy every stronghold. So they were able to defeat them because the charges that were leveled against them turned out to be false, and it backfired on them. Okay, it says that when they are summoned before these authorities, principalities in the first century, they should not think of what they are going to say or how they are going to defend themselves, because at that material moment, the Holy Spirit in them is going to tell them what to say in Matthew chapter 10, verse 16 following. And at some time, I think, was it Stephen or Peter, Stephen or, yeah, Philip, spoke with certain knowledge that his accusers could not comprehend it. You understand? So it was the gospel and the Holy Spirit living in them that was able to shut up the Satan and the devil. Now remember, when we say Satan, who is also called devil or that old serpent, we are talking about a character or a figure, a character, which, or anyone who is an accuser, opposer, or adversary. Such one is called a Satan. And so, if you look at how the church battled against these authorities in the first century, it is clear that those who were there at the time were the Satan. They were the one who were at war with the church. Okay, they were opposing them, they were accusing them, so they constitute the Satan. Okay, so but however, the church or the apostles were able to overcome uh, all these charges by the working of the Holy Spirit in them. Okay, so this angel that we see came with a key, to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. So that chain constitutes the gospel, because that was what was able to use to bind, Satan. Those who brought these false charges against them, they could not resist them. Now, again, it said that he laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of old, who is devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal on him, so that he should deceive the nations no more until 1,000 years were finished. But what happened at the end of the 1,000 years? It says that, but after these things, he must be released for a little while. Now, when you read First Peter chapter 5, verse 8, it says that, your adversary, Satan, who were this adversary who were troubling the church in the first century? They were the unbelieving Jews. You see, we are not talking about a certain figure, creepy being, humanoid, that walks around to terrorize people. No, but we are talking about individuals who were around at the time who were confronted with this persecutions and so on and so forth. All right, so if you read verse 8 of First Peter 5, it says that be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary is the same as Satan, or that serpent of the old, or devil. The adversary, the devil, see how he connected the two. Your adversary, the Satan, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. So who are these people? They were the don't believe in Jews who were walking around, who were going around persecuting the church, bringing false accusation against them. Okay, so he said that after these things he must be released for a little while. Okay, so that was that. These individuals who were walking around, carrying false charges against the church and apostles in the first century. Okay, but it was for a little while, because we know that in Romans chapter 16, verse 20, it said that God of peace shall soon crush Satan under your feet. Okay, so it was for a while that these adversaries will be destroyed. Okay, it wasn't going to take about 1,000 or 2,000 years, but it was for a short period of time when these ones will be destroyed. Soon, shortly, it's going to crush Satan under your feet. Now, remember in John chapter number 12, verse 30, 31, 32, it says that now is the judgment. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. So it means that the judgment upon the adversary Satan, these individuals, apostate Israel, were just around the corner. And I want to limit this video to a specific things, but I don't know why I have gone around trying to talk about the entire chapter. I don't know how I'll be able to do this in just 15 minutes. Anyway, but again, it talks about a time when he saw thrones, and after this, he said that, and I saw thrones, and they who sat on them, judgment was committed to them. So judgment was committed to those who sit on this throne. Now remember, in Joel chapter 3, it talks about the time when the Lord comes to sit on the throne. That will be the time when he judges the surrounding nations. Now, those who have labored with him, he will raise them to sit, and sit with them in the heavenlies. Okay, so here he saw the thrones and judgment were committed to them. Okay, but we know that when the Lord comes, he comes to sit on the throne to judge the surrounding nations. That is Joel chapter 3, verse 12. Jesus quoted Joel 3 in uh, Joel 3, verse 12 in Matthew chapter 25, verse 30-31, when the Lord sits on his throne in his kingdom to judge the surrounding nations. So that's the time of the judgment. Okay, and we know that all these things is occurring in the first century. Well, it goes on and on and on, but I will want to focus on verse 11, 11 down the chapter, 11 down to perhaps verse 15. That talks about, so all these things is taking place within the 1,000 years reign, But it said that so after the 1,000 years reign, it said that then I saw a great white throne, and him who sat on it, from whose face the heaven and earth fled away. Now, what does Jesus say when Israel is judged in AD 70? It says that heaven and earth will pass away, but my words abide forever. So that time when heaven and earth will pass away will be the time when the Lord, you know, uh, will, sat on his throne to judge. Okay, but heaven and the earth passed away in Matthew chapter 24. So that means that Revelation chapter number 12, verse 11 also occurs in that judgment upon Israel, in AD 70. So it fled away. But I said that, and there was no place found for them. Okay, so heaven and earth was totally, destroyed. Remember now, in Hebraic literature, heaven and the earth constitute a temple. It was a temple typology. So the one which is going to be destroyed was the one made with hand, so that the one which was not made with hand will come and to dwell with us. That is eternal. It does not destroyed. Because in Daniel chapter number 2, 44, 45 says that the one which is going to be set up, that stone cup without hand, is going to be a large one, and it will not be handed over to anyone, because the Lord is going to reign upon. So here we see the old one, the old heaven and earth, being Jerusalem temple part, being thrown down, in that will also occasion the reception of the new heaven and the new earth, which does not fade away, which abides forever. So that is how we should understand that great white throne judgment. Uh, Now it says that, and there were no place found for them. So as I was saying, in Matthew chapter 24, verse 1 to 3, Christ said that no one stone will be left on one another. Everything is going to be zero onto the ground, and as Daniel said, it will be blown away like a chaff. So this is how the temple was going to be destroyed. Now he said that, and I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God. So now this is the time of judgment. So the time of judgment is in connection with the time when the Lord sits on the throne. At that time, heaven and the earth will pass away. That will be the time of judgment. But Joel said that time when the Lord sits on the throne to judge will be the time when Israel will be cast out. That will be in connection with that judgment upon Israel. Okay. And in Matthew chapter 24, verse 35, heaven and earth will pass away. So let us understand, this imagery in order to, understand what is happening here. So we see the dead, great and small, standing before God. Now, In First Peter chapter 4, verse 6, verse 5 to 7, it says that God is about to judge. So he uses the word mellow, both the living and the dead. Okay, so we see all this thing, the eminent time statement that I used to describe this judgment that was about to come upon them. But here we see them standing before God. Now it says that books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. Now, and the dead were judged according to their works by the things which were written in the books. Now, the opening of the books. This is John is quoting this from Daniel chapter 7, verse 11. Okay, verse 10 to 11. Okay, the time of the opening of the books. The time of the opening of the books, which is also called the Feast of Trumpet. Okay, or the Yom Teruah, which is also called Hankadushian, the wedding of the Messiah, and so on and so forth. So here, the opening of the book simply means the Feast of Trumpet. Now, in the Feast of Trumpet, what they do is that, according to the Jewish tradition, heavenly court, is seated, and books are opened, and God will, look at each one's work for 10 days. Then the book will be closed on the 10th day in view of the Feast of Atonement. Okay, now the high priest will have to go into the most holy place to atone for the sins of the nation. Now, when he successfully returns from the most holy place to dwell with the people, then the people will be praising God. God's glory will shine upon them. Then comes the Feast of Tabernacle, where the Lord now dwells with them because their sins have been forgiven. So that is what is happening here. That is what is happening. The opening of the books is also what we call the Feast of Trumpet, or another name is that day and hour no man knows. That is also the same as Feast of Trumpet, or opening of books, or another opening of the books. Okay, and we have that in Matthew chapter 24. In connection with the fall of Jerusalem. It says that of that day and hour no man knows. That is the same as the sounding of the trumpet, or the Feast of Trumpet, or the opening of the books. Okay, so now remember in Matthew chapter 24, verse 30 to 31, it talks about the time when the Lord comes with his angel with the trumpet sound. That trumpet sound is also what we call the opening of the books. Or that day and hour no man knows. No one knows the day and the hour of visitation. Remember what Jesus told the Jews of his days in Luke chapter 19, verse 43 to 44, that you may not know, they will lay embankments, around your city, and you will be caught up and be destroyed because you did not know the day and hour of my visitation. So that was the day of judgment, and it's in connection and association with the Jewish in the first century. That is what is happening also in Matthew number 24. Matthew chapter number 24, the day and hour no man knows, is the time of the opening of the books. This is a quote from Daniel 7, verse 10 to 11, the opening of the books. Okay, this is also 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 10. Sitting on this is the sitting on the great white throne judgment is also 2 Peter chapter 5, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 10. Okay, the opening of the books. So this is how we have to understand it. It's not that literally there is going to be a literal books and the whole world starting with Adam and Eve. Look at everyone names on a particular book and God is going to reckon with them. No, God knows what you do. Okay, but it describes a judgment scene. But that judgment is where heaven and earth, passed away. That is what Jesus said in Matthew 24:35. Heaven and earth will pass away. So that is the time of the great white throne judgment. All right, now, so those who names were. Now it says that they were judged according to things written in the book. Now remember what Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58, that the Lord is going to judge everyone according to his work. Okay, and so the saints who have done good will not be left out. They are going to be rewarded accordingly based on what they have done. Okay, so Paul said that in view of the imminent coming of the Lord to open book to judge anyone. And in Matthew chapter number 16, verse 27-28, we see the Lord coming with the angels with a trumpet sound to judge each one, to judge and to reward each one according to his work. So it's the same coming of the Lord, it's the same white throne judgment, it's the same AD 70, judgment. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 27-20, he said that assuredly I say to you, there are some standing here which shall not taste that till they see me come in my kingdom. Now he comes attended by the angels with a trumpet sound and judging each one according to his work. That is exactly what is happening here. But not that it says that verse 30 that the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and the dead and Hades delivered up those the dead who were in them. Now I believe that this has to do, the land and the sea. Some believe that the sea, that beyond the sea, that has to do with Roman Empire, and the land has to do with the land of Palestine that is in Rome. But I think that all of these, were taking place in the were taking place in the land of Palestine. All right, the sea and the sea, both the sea and the land, all relate to Jewish association, Jewish figures, and so on, and formations, and so on and so forth. Now, the Lord is about to judge both the dead and the living. First Peter chapter 4 and Act chapter 24. Okay, now, as I said, we are not delving into this. We're only looking at it. We are just looking at the surface. But I think I have done, detailed video which you can watch. Now, so again, and they were judged according. They were judged, each one according to his work. So just like the verse 12. Okay. Now, verse 14. Then the dead and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. So again, there's also the casting into the lake of fire of dead and Hades. This is what I want to talk about, a little. I want to talk about that. This is the destruction of death. Okay. This is the destruction of death, and this is the destruction of Hades. Now, there are people, but all these things occurs after the 1,000 years reign. I believe that should be around AD 66. Okay, because this event, the little while event, was just for a period of time until AD 70, when uh, everything, came in life. Well, everything were fulfilled, at the time. But it says that, hello, I'm not sure. All right, so now in connection with that how did you know? Excuse me. Now, in connection with that is the time when death and Hades will be destroyed. You see, the reason is that people still believe that when a faithful die, he goes into Hades, a component called paradise. But you see that death and Hades are destroyed at the end of the millennium. Now, what I have said, all relates to the white throne judgments, passing away of heaven and earth, and so on and so forth. All these things were elements of the AD 70 judgment. But what we are talking about in verse 14 is the destruction of death. Now, when did Isaiah say that death will be destroyed or death will be swallowed up in victory? Now, in Hosea chapter 13, verse 14, that is also in the context has to do with Jewish judgment. It says, that will be the time when, uh, you know, that will be the time when Israel is judged, but also be the time when death is destroyed or swallowed up in victory. And so when you read, death being destroyed in Book of Revelation chapter 21 and First Corinthians chapter 15, remember that they are being quoted directly from the Old Testament. Okay, so they were pointing to the audience in the first century that what was predicted is being unfolding or being fulfilled in our time. So is the time of the great white throne judgment and the millennium. We see that dead and Hades are destroyed. Christ said that Hades will not prevail against my body. Okay, definitely Hades will be destroyed. And as Isaiah predicted a time when death and Hades will be swallowed up in victory. But he connected this time to the time of the messianic wedding banquet. So what it means is that the wedding comes after the millennium. The great messianic wedding banquet comes after the millennium, right? That will also mean that the great white throne judgment comes after the millennium. And because it will be the time of judgment, we know that the judgment, this time of judgment, is also the time of the reception of the kingdom. That will be the time when the Lord comes along, with him, or comes with him those who are falling asleep in him, those who are in Hades. They'll be raised up into the kingdom, and that will be the time when the wedding, is consummated. Okay, but that occurs at the end of the millennium, at the end of the 1,000 years reign. Now, what happens is that death and Hades is also destroyed at the end of the millennium. But the wedding, according to Isaiah chapter 25, occurs in connection with the fall of Jerusalem. In Isaiah chapter 25, verse 1 to 8, that it is there. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that the millennium is also the millennium or the millennium or destruction of Jerusalem comes after the millennium. Immediately after the millennium end, then comes the destruction of Jerusalem. That is the judgment that we are talking about, because the Lord comes in his kingdom to sit and to pass judgment, to judge the surrounding nations. That is where heaven and earth will fled away. And we know that heaven and earth will pass away in AD 70 in Matthew chapter 24, verse 35. Okay, and so we should know when the 1,000 years reign ended. We should know when the millennium ended. It ended when Jerusalem was destroyed. But that was also the time of the great messianic wedding banquet. Now, the wedding banquet also comes in connection with the destruction or the swallowing up of death and Hades in victory. Now, what is John saying? That in connection with this great white throne judgment will be the time when death and Hades will be cast into that lake of fire. But we know that is destroyed in connection with the fall of Jerusalem. So that means that the pogrom upon the fire upon Israel constitutes what John is talking about. See, these are imagery. It talks about not the reality, it's just the imagery. So you have to, understand what is happening here. So the destruction of death occurs when heaven and earth pass away. But heaven and earth pass away in connection with the time of the wedding. The time of the wedding is also in connection with the fall of Jerusalem. That is why you see heaven and earth passing away in Matthew 24. That is AD 70 text, when Jerusalem was destroyed. When the Lord comes in the glory of the Father with his angels, with the trumpet sound, to reward each one according to his work. Matthew 24, it is there. But that will be the time, the coming will be the time when the Lord sits upon his throne in his kingdom to judge the surrounding nation. It comes, with those who are falling asleep, with him, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all the prophets. Okay, that will be the time when Hades will be destroyed. All right, so to assume or to argue that when we die, we are going to rest in Hades is to, misunderstand the text, to misunderstand the connection. What did John say just after this? Is after this great white throne judgment, when death and Hades have been thrown into the lake of fire, have been destroyed, when death is swallowed up in victory, he said that he now saw the new heaven and the new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also, there was no more sea. So here, heaven and earth will pass away at the great white throne judgment. But the great white throne judgment comes after, or the new heaven and the new earth comes after the first heaven and the earth has passed away. But the heaven and the earth is temple typology. So what we are seeing here is the destruction of the earthly tabernacle for the new heavenly tabernacle, that which does not come with observation, eternal in heaven, not made with hands, will come. Remember, Daniel said that he saw that stone cut without hand, and he Christ the existing kingdom. Okay, so that stone cut without hand is the messianic, where is the messianic temple or the new tabernacle that destroyed the existing temples, okay, to and after which it established on its own and spread to reach everywhere. That occurs in connection with the time of the wedding, okay, and the time of the great white throne judgment, when heaven and earth will actually be destroyed. So let us understand this. Let us not you know go here and there when you talk about the millennium as if it's something that is going to come in our time. No, it belongs to the past. Okay, we are not living in the millennium. Okay, because once we agree that the wedding has occurred, then definitely the millennium has also occurred. Then death and Hades has also been destroyed, because death is destroyed in connection with with the wedding and the fall of Jerusalem in Isaiah chapter 25. Okay, so here it was said that the new heaven and the new earth has come. The first one is past, and there's no more sea. The sea was Gentile imagery in Isaiah chapter 60, or Isaiah chapter 60. The abundance of the sea shall come to your light. So that is the Gentiles, coming uh, to uh, coming to coming into the faith, okay, to be counted as God's own sons of resurrection, in Christ. And in verse 3, it says that, behold, now verse 2 said that, and I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as bride for the husband. So the new heaven and the new earth is also called the new Jerusalem, the holy city. The prepared as bride for her husband. Now we know the church is Christ's wife, so that is what we are talking about here. And in verse 3 it said that, and I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. So what is with men now is the tabernacle. The new tabernacle of God is now with men. Okay, this is the time of the wedding, where the old heaven and the earth will be destroyed, so that the new one will come and will come to dwell with men. That will be the time when death and Hades will be destroyed. It They are destroyed at the end of the millennium, or after the millennium. Wedding comes after the millennium, and so on and so forth. So to think that when we die we are going to rest in paradise is it's not working at this time. You have to end here, come your way some other time, God willing, maybe next week. Bye.